Smart Blondes Productions was founded a year ago, I think almost, was it? Yeah.
Nice, just let that bus pass. And the next 5.
Short film, comedy. Well, it better be funny.
What?
I like the script. I think Caroline wrote a really lovely little script. It's funny, you know, and it's quirky, and so the worry was then, can I deliver, you know, with the comic timing?
I guess the idea, you know, behind it when we did come together to set up, you know, a company of this stature is to make your own work and be able to, you know, sit there and write really interesting, eclectic, you know, female parts that just aren't written anymore. You know, so if you don't write it for yourself, where do you get it?
But this time it's more like, it's, you know, it's girls having fun, it's glamour. It's almost like a commercial. So,
you know, to get into writing, to start producing your own stuff, I mean, it's a huge leap. Emmett Hart directed our last short, which is called I Am Jesus, that John Fay shot. And then when we were looking to do Torn, John wanted to get back on board as well, and Karen McGrath, who's his missus, had seen I Am Jesus and she wanted to get involved, so then she said that she would love to direct it. So we thought, well, that's brilliant, because it was our first time having a female director.
And it was complete chance the girls were looking for a director. I think they wanted a female director, and as it's turned out, one of the really nice things, and we weren't looking for it or planning it, but it's mainly women. There's a high, you know, propensity of women on set, which is really, really nice.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it's great to have a female director. You know, I think it just adds to the whole. And Karen's brilliant as well, and sees the vision exactly as we see it. You know, and especially with this sort of script.
And she's big into the actors, like she's big into like rehearsing and getting into the nitty gritty, and do you know what I mean? She knew exactly what she was doing from day one, you know.
When we workshopped it with Karen, it was just
she brought
it to life. It was just fantastic, because I started to have this huge backstory about being late for work and that my boss was just constantly on my case, and so it was fantastic. By the end of it, I was so flustered, and then with Circa being an absolute psycho bitch and pushing the menus at me, it just gave me so much more to play with.
You know, it reads like the waitress doesn't have a lot to do, but actually we worked quite a lot on her subtext and her motivation and making her a character as well.
You know, as an actor, you always want roles that are going to challenge you and that are totally different to what you've ever played. So when at the beginning, she was more like of a bitch, but then when Karen McGrath got involved, she was coming over a psycho bitch.
So there was a lot to it. You know, I needed to stand in a certain place at a certain time and in a certain direction, and if I didn't, then it would mess it all up. But thankfully, it all worked out.
Karen and John are married, so they get on really well. So they were able to.
Yeah, they did.
Well,
so they were brilliant. So they obviously worked together as a team.
Seriously, guys, it's not just shit.
It's one thing about being husband and wife, that we can see each other more often, where she can do a storyboard and discuss shots and go on the recce and then try and nail it down. And even with all that done, when you're working with animals, as you saw this morning, or working outside in the street without closing it off, it just, you know.
The other thing I did was I bought Frame Forge and I storyboarded it with John. And so we had a lot of conversations out of the way about angles and how we were going to shoot it before we got to the set. And we were very lucky, you know. We're husband and wife, but I think that was irrelevant, to be quite honest, because we had to schedule time to sit down and do that. We're outside a busy restaurant, we're on Suffolk Street, it's building up to St. Paddy's weekend, you know, there's a lot of traffic. I'm not sure, we may have to ADR some of our dialogue. Stephen Farrell's had a lot to deal with in terms of sound. Billy as well, you know, shooting shallow depth of field and trying to avoid product placement and stuff. So yeah.
I think like last week we had a crew of 20 and it was 3 males on that crew, which is brilliant to see, you know.
spit tracks. Boom left, radio right for dialogue outside.
Fiona, are you calling it?
Yeah, there's bags. There's freebie bags.
3, 2, 1, action.
And cut. That was lovely, yeah.
It's Fiona, our amazing AD.
Hi, how are you?
And dog trainer extraordinaire. Dog wrangler.
As it happens, I work in RT as a stage manager there, so I would work with Sorka and I'd work with John and Stevie on sound. But also I went to college with Elaine Harty, who plays the waitress. We were in drama college together a few years back. And then Sorka said, actually, how do you fancy helping out as a first AD as well? So I said, yes, of course.
We all get on really well, we're all passionate about our jobs, and we all came from an acting background that you know, to get into writing, to start producing your own stuff, I mean, it's a huge leap. So sometimes we're the thick blonde.
Speak for yourself.
Well, more so than